Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Bruner Tuner. In today's video, we're going to be on episode 4 of the Ultimate Daily Driver Scion TC series. Now, in the last episode, if you watched it, you would have seen that we installed a throttle tuner for the car to make those heel toe and rev matching downshifts a little bit easier. So in today's video, I have a few more upgrades and one that kind of ties into the last video as well too, which is these new OMP pedals for the TC. Now, these are kind of more of a race style one. I don't know how well they're gonna actually do and feel in the car. I mean, I'm sure as far as heel toe goes, they should be fine, but I don't know if there is actually gonna be any kind of like ergonomic downsides to using them for a street application. So we'll see how those are. I really just wanted something that looked better than the kind of small stock rubber looking pedals and that is just a bit easier to heel toe on. The stock ones aren't awful, but they could certainly be easier. So that is the first upgrade. The other is one that I've been meaning to do for years on the car, and that is LED lighting for the headlights. Now, all of the LED lights inside the car are actually, I'm sorry, let me rephrase it. All of the lights inside the car have already been switched out to LED, but the headlights are still those yellow looking halogens. So it doesn't look fantastic. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and just throw in these bulbs that I got on Amazon. I read some reviews on these ones, and these exact bulbs someone had actually used in the same year TC that I have and had good reviews and good things to say about it. So that's what I will be using on this. Now, there's a bit of a science when it comes to picking bulbs for your car, and you could really go into it a bit more and find specific bulbs manufactured just for that car, but I think these are gonna work okay, and we'll make sure that they're adjusted to where they're not blinding other drivers. So that is what we have on the agenda for today. So thank you guys for tuning in, and let's go ahead and start working on it. Okay guys, we're going to go ahead and start off with putting in these LED bulbs here. Now, these aren't terribly hard to install. You see that there is just a harness plug-in for the car side, and then the bulb will go into the same place that the old bulb goes. Now, it is a little bit different. You see it's got these cooling fins here. It's because the LEDs are going to put off a lot of heat, so it needs to dissipate that correctly. And then it has like a small little ballast here. So we'll plug these in and make sure the ballasts are, tied down somewhere and they're in a good location that they're not going to flop around. So we're going to go ahead and start with this and work our way from there. Now, you'll also note that we have 4 bulbs. So I wanted to match the high beams with the low beams, so I went ahead and got a set that has all of those. So we'll make sure that, we're putting in the correct bulbs where they go, because they are different. So we'll take a look here and distinguish which ones are which, and then we'll go from there. I can already see that this one is labeled 9005, which I think that is the high beam.
You're so stupid!
I'll double check, but we will make sure that we get the right ones put in the right place. This kit is also really nice and provided their own little like Japanese factory line worker gloves. So that's to make sure that you don't smudge the headlights, because any kind of smudge is going to leave oils from your hand on the bulb, and what that will do is it'll create a hot spot on the bulb and can potentially burn through that area. So we would just want to make sure and avoid that kind of thing if we can. Also came with a nice instruction kit and some adhesive squares and some zip ties. Won't use these zip ties because they're not stealth black, which is important. So we can see here that the bulb that I just took out is actually labeled on the back, and this one says 9005. So I'm just going to replace like for like here. I'm going to take this one out and then put in the new bulb that's labeled 9005. Out. There we go. So yeah, you should be able to see here that this is labeled 9005, so we'll just replace that for the like one. Okay, so this one is labeled 9005. So we're gonna go ahead and plug this ballast end in first and then put the plug in. So we'll just take this, plug it into the stock harness here. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and screw this back into the housing. It'll only fit in one way. Right, and we'll see that this one is labeled H11C, and then the new one is labeled H11. So we'll go ahead and throw this in, and this is going to be your high beam, thus the H. So now that we're done with that, what we need to do is tidy up these ballasts. We don't want them just hanging in here and flopping around. It doesn't look very good, and it's not good for the wiring or the ballasts over the long term. So I'm going to go ahead and probably grab some zip ties and just try and get them tidily mounted up. Kind of probably probably on the stock harness somewhere, just make it look a little better. There we have it. Nothing spectacular, but just zip tied kind of to the harness and the two ballasts to each other, just so that it's not, flopping around while we're driving and getting all beat up. So now we go to the other side and go ahead and throw those in. Okay guys, well there we have it for this side as well too. So you can see I just zip tied these out of the way on the harnesses over here, just kind of out of the way and not bouncing around. So that side's done. That side is done as well too. So we'll go ahead and plug this in, make sure our battery is secured down, and then go ahead and turn it on and see if it works. Well, looks like that's a win there, so good news, they work. Alright guys, we're going to go ahead and get around to installing the pedals, but if you have a coupe that has super long doors that are really heavy, like the TCs are, coupes usually have a longer, heavier door. Well, in this case, I like to usually jack up the door just a little bit and support it. Just make sure that those hinges aren't being stressed as I have the door open, because that's a lot of weight to leverage on the into the hinges there. So just a little tip for you guys if you're working on your long door coupe. Okay guys, what I'm going to start off with here is actually just taking the pedals out and putting them over the pedals and see if I even like the style and kind of the shape of how they look before I drill any holes and get too crazy with it. So let's start with that and see how these look. So usually these pedals just have rubber covers on them that come off. They kind of mold around the pedal itself. So I'm going to try a little screwdriver and a plastic interior trim tool, see if that will do the job. See if we can pry these things off. They're usually pretty tight on there. Okay, that wasn't so bad. One of those I actually just took off with my hand, and then the other just had to pry off with a screwdriver. Now, one thing I didn't think about is the fact that that is not actually just a pedal cover. That's part of the whole assembly there. So with that one, we're just gonna have to probably drill through it. It's a bit of an odd design too, because you can see, yeah, hopefully you can see that, but it's channeled down the middle there. So it might be kind of interesting to, get this hardware to go through, but we will see what we can do here. Okay guys, well the good news is I like the way that they look. The bad news is a Mambo Italiano.
Gluten Classico from the kitchen.
I'm also not the smartest man. Maybe I'm not that smart. Hell, I know I'm really not.
My mom always said.
But not really sure which pedal goes where, so let my 2 brain cells crunch on this for a second and then we'll get it set up. Alright guys, I am just an idiot. You just gotta be able to speak the language of the pasta lords. So, it lays it out here for you. I know what accelerator is. Frizione, I'm guessing, is friction or clutch, blah blah blah. Freno is definitely brake, because it's in the middle. So, with the power of reasoning, I have figured it out. Okay guys, since these are a universal pedal that go over the existing stock ones, we're gonna have to be able to drill through these things and put some hardware through. So what I need to figure out first though is the placement of the pedals and exactly where I want to drill these holes through at. So I'm gonna go ahead and figure that out first, and then we'll go ahead and drill our holes. There we go, I had it in the wrong mounting holes. Anyways, so now that the first pedal is mocked up there, it should be easier to figure out the placement of the second ones. Second and third, I'm sorry. Second and third brake and gas pedal. So I'm not going to film that because it's just going to be a bit tedious, but I will come back when it's all finished. Okay guys, I didn't film those other ones because it was really difficult to film down here in general, especially without blocking the camera, and it's night. But if you have a Scion TC, at least from the 2nd gen, you need to be really careful if you're doing this kind of install yourself, because that pedal has that channel that goes underneath it through the bottom. You really only have a very slim margin on the right side where the holes line up to be able to mount this. So those are really on the edge of the pedal there, and of course if you overlap that, then your hole becomes a slot, so you really don't want to do that. I mean, you can still use a stock pedal, but you know, now it's gonna have holes in it too, and it's gonna look really ugly and it won't match your other ones. So just a heads up for anyone DIYing this themselves.